Hello, hello. In this episode, I want to be talking about one of the hardest working athletes that I have worked with. His name is Jason Brulport, aka NASA. Basically, he got his nickname from making rocket ship noises when he was lifting in the weight room, number one. And number two, because the guy hits absolute moon balls. He can crush baseballs, as you see here. And he is just a phenomenal worker, phenomenal person, and it is a pleasure working with him at any given point. But what I want this episode to be about, aside from just basically telling NASA that he's awesome, is that I want to talk about him as an athlete, about his structural balance in his body, and kind of how we approach his training. Just to give you a little background on him, NASA made second team all-conference this year. He plays first base for Kenosha Tremper, and he is a leader on that team and basically helped them to the sectional final of the Wisconsin State Championship tournament this year in 2019. So he's a stud, and he works his tail off and deserves every bit of success that he gets. So from here on out, though, basically what I wanted to do was talk about his workout today and his hips in particular. So something to know about NASA is that he can deadlift a house. He is an ox, super strong. And basically, his lowest hanging fruit is not the typical low hanging fruit for other athletes. NASA's able to deadlift over 500 pounds on the high handles for a trap bar, and he can do that fairly easily. He's probably capable of somewhere closer to 600, perhaps even more. But honestly, once we discovered he could deadlift 500, it was kind of like, okay, this guy has plenty of posterior hip stability and strength in his glutes. We don't really need to work on that as much. We need to get him in the best position possible as far as structural balance goes. And what I mean by structural balance is just that his body is balanced from back to front, side to side, and that he is not overloaded in one direction or the other. So I don't want him overly posteriorly dominant. I don't want him overly interior dominant, lateral or medial. We really just want him completely balanced throughout. And in this workout today, that's kind of what it was all about. So he came in, his glutes were super tight. He was having a little bit of anterior hip pain and crackling. He hasn't been in for a while. So basically what we did, number one, was we took out any of his posterior hip movements or extension work in his hips. I think I only left like one exercise in there for him to do there. And we basically worked hip flexion and posterior hip mobility the entire time. I had him roll out his posterior hips for a good 5 to 10 minutes. We stretched out his glutes, and in between sets of stretching and rolling out, he was doing some hip flexion work like dead bugs, some high knee movements, and basically just getting his hip flexors activated so that his nervous system was regulating a little bit more power to the hip flexors rather than to all of his hip extensors. And then from there, we just really attacked the upper body like we normally do, hit some external rotation in the arms, as you can see here, hit some anterior delt work, and then we hit our energy systems development circuit where he's got some sprinting, some ab rollouts, some W work for his posterior shoulders. So here's the sprints. So obviously we're going to get a little bit of like posterior hip development here with the hamstrings and the glutes, calves, but what I really cared about here was just having him get his knees up so that the hip started functioning more appropriately and trying to get full range there so that the glutes would relax as they're supposed to as he's picking his legs up off the ground. And if he does that appropriately, he'll end up getting a lot more speed out of his sprinting. But you can see here we're getting a little bit of isometric hip work along with isometric anterior scap work. On this exercise, we're getting a little more posterior shoulder stuff, just trying to get him to sit his shoulder blades down a little bit more. He's getting too much into his traps on that exercise initially, so we were fixing that a little bit. He's going to get a little posterior hip on the J-band W there, but not too much. Obviously more hip flexion stuff here, just trying to pick the knees up. Getting his calves to loosen up a lot too can help with his hips, so I forgot to mention that, but we worked on a lot of ankle mobility, particularly trying to get him into dorsiflexion, using bands and distraction work and stuff like that. But then, this was really the only like focused posterior hip exercise that I had him do the entire day. Obviously the lying leg curl is going to be pretty tough on the hamstrings and hip extension. So, but he was feeling really good. By the end of the workout, he was feeling a lot better than when he came in. And for guys who are beasts and super strong with super high activity nervous systems like NASA with a lot of power. A lot of times it's less about making them super strong and powerful and things like triple extension, like what strength coaches are often taught to do, and it's more about just getting him really mobile and feeling good so that when he plays in his next tournament, he's going to Cincinnati on Tuesday, tomorrow, that he just feels really good for the entirety of the tournament, and then sort of giving him drills while he's away from the weight room, away from the workshop, where we can fix him easily, just giving him tools to use while he's out on the baseball field to keep himself mobile and healthy before he can get back into training with me again. So yeah, I just wanted to take this video as an opportunity to give props to NASA on a great season. He kicked some butt, and he's a phenomenal athlete and works his butt off, so I couldn't ask for somebody that was more committed or more hardworking than him, and I just wanted to give him a big shout out in this video. I think I'm going to be doing more videos on athletes like NASA because I have a lot of guys who work really hard and train really consistently and do all the right things, and I'd like to give them props as well. But thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you disliked it, hit that thumbs down button and just tell me why in the comments so I can make a change. And otherwise, subscribe and hit the notification button if you like the content that you're seeing on my channel. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.